Hello everyone, welcome to another interview. I'm here with Kellex, the main support of Ence, and we're here today to talk about everything happening for OWCS Stage 4. Now, Ence have already qualified for the top 8, but before we get into all that, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your kind of arrival into Ence. Because right back towards the end of Stage 1, you left Twisted Minds. When you left Twisted Minds there, were you intending to come back at some point, or when you left, did you feel like it might kind of be the end of your career? Was there any intention to retire at any point there?
I was kind of divided. I just needed, at first I thought it was going to be a real retirement this time, but I think I just needed like a long break because I was really burned out and we had some internal stuff with TM, so I just really needed a break to get out of everything. And then after a while, 2 teams approached me and I thought I might as well just come back because I missed playing and I didn't really have a purpose. So it seemed like the perfect fit for me to come back and play again.
What made Ence the team that made you come back then? Why choose them?
Yeah, I mean, they always did well in the previous stages, and they all have really good players. I really want to play with, I never played with this, Kev, Kai, and so on. So I thought it would be good for me to try and play with them, and they're all great players. And I think I had another team, but this team was the one that was going to win it all, I think. So that was like the deciding factor.
And then do you have, you mentioned you didn't play with quite a few of the players here, because it feels like you probably know all of the players at least,
yeah.
Right? You've all been around the same, but is there any of you actually have played on with before?
I mean, I've played with Sky, but I never played with them on a real team. It was mostly just like tryouts or anything like that. So yeah, it was the first time where I was actually playing with them for real.
And how have you found fitting into the team so far then?
It was quite easy. I think they all have a lot of experience, so it was quite natural for me to just come in and find my role really quickly. Yeah, they're all really smart players, so it's really easy just to get to know what system they're going with and then, adapting right away. It was quite easy.
And then I want to ask, because am I right in thinking you guys are still coachless, right, post Crimzone?
Yeah.
So how does it work then within the team in terms of like a new meta comes around or you have problems? Do you guys review as a group, or is there certain players who take more responsibility for that side of things?
I think everyone kind of chips in when they have a good idea. We usually, if something went really bad in a scrim or there's a new big patch coming, I think we always just gather together after a scrim and then we just talk about like, what do we think is good? How do we do this and that? And sometimes we do VODs as well, but we don't have like one guy who dictates everything. We just kind of, everyone contributes in a way.
Have you hit any issues yet when there's maybe been a disagreement where it then becomes like, how do you solve it if there's been a problem? Like sometimes a coach is often used as the kind of balancing thing if there's these clashes.
Yeah,
have you hit any issues like that?
I mean, not really, but I think sometimes we are lacking someone higher up in the hierarchy who can make the final decision on something, because sometimes we'll get divided on like what tank is going to play this map or what comps do we want to run. If we have a few different ideas, we can debate back and forth for a while, but then eventually we need someone to take that final decision. And I don't think, well, not yet at least, but we don't have like one guy who always does it. We just kind of, talk, and then we're like, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? What do you want to do? Back and forth. And then eventually we just pick one thing and then we stick with it.
And then I want to ask you a bit about the meta, because it very much seems like every region in the world is very much sort of settled on. It's mostly Juno, Brig in 80% plus of places, if not everywhere. But yeah, there seems to be a few different ideas on the tank pick. We see teams like SSG playing a little bit more like a counter-swappy tank style, whereas in Korea, we see everyone seems to have very much settled over the course of a weekend that it's just Orisa everywhere. Do you feel there is one tank that is the standout strongest now, or are we still in more of a counter-swappy meta?
I don't know. I think it's still kind of counter-swappy. I think it mostly depends on what teams prefer, because I think a tank like Orisa is probably really safe on most maps, but there are certain hybrid maps where you can maybe get away with playing dive or another cheese comp. I think for us, we can do both styles, but SSG, as you said, they like counter-swapping, and I think if you have a flexible tank player, it's okay to do that, because you can get away with winning, because you can just play the better tank and then just win, and then you'll start this counter-swapping system. And I think if you have figured it out as a team, it's really, really strong, but then again, you can always just play like the safe comps and just try and win that way as well.
And then between you and Sky, how did you pick who was going to be the Juno, who was going to be the Brig? Because we've seen teams go in different directions. So how was yours settled?
I think when we started out playing, I think we just put me and Brig and Sky and Juno, but then we realized that you might not only play that backline, so you might have to swap between a few flex supports, and we tried with Sky and Brig, but then he just said, I'm not gonna play that hero, so we just thought, okay, it's either I just swap or we just one trick this backline and we hope for the best, you know?
And then the Brig player, I feel like, has probably one of the hardest roles in the comp, like a very unrewarding role. So what do you think is the most important thing for the Brig player in this type of like brawly meta?
I'm still trying to figure that out myself, but I think it's just mostly just proccing your Inspire and then baiting and just following your team. This comp, or like when you're playing a Rhythm, it seems very much like you have to really go in. It's hard to kite sometimes, but you just have to go in and play your life and then kind of hope that you win. It's kind of like, it reminds me a bit of the Jungle Queen meta with Lucio Brig, if you remember that one, where you just go in and you swing a few times and then, yeah, you just hope for the best. There's no real skill expression, I think, on that hero at least. So it's just survive and try and get as much impact as you can.
There was a point after, I think it was probably Face It playoffs, where Landon came into some criticism as the Brig player for SSG of, I felt like he died all the time and all of this. And then afterwards, Landon sort of said, well, either I go in trying to do something and die, or I have to just play at the back of a map and do nothing.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same thing's kind of true, and it's about which one's better? Is it better to just play your life and play like maybe lesser impact but less dead?
I think it's situational. You know, there's a fine balance between the two things. I think sometimes you can play more baity, sometimes you have to go all in, you know. Usually when there's a big old fight coming, you're the target, so you have to fight, and then, as I said, you have to go in and do as much as you can and then eventually die, because I think in this meta, if the enemy team wants to kill you on Brig, you will die. So you might have a few more deaths than your teammates, but everything else will look good, you know. So it's just, if you can, like, I think the better Brig players will probably find the balance and then, you know, try and stay around that balance and then do really well.
And then I wanted to ask about the expectations for this tournament. I feel like every time we come in, Ence have been super consistent throughout the year. Always talk about winning the tournament, but this one, going into this type of meta, do you think it's on the cards again to go back to back?
Oh, I mean, I think we can win for sure, but it's a very macro heavy comp, and I think we strive or like thrive in situations where our individual players can do individual like plays and carry, like Kev's on the Tracer, can't hit scan, Vez on the tank, you know, they can go in and do their thing, like in the last meta, but this one is more macro heavy, so we have to really improve our team play and, you know, just these decision-making mid-fight scenarios. I think if we can work on that and improve that, I think we have a really good chance of winning. But I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to win it for sure, because there's strong teams in this stage. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
When you won last stage, did it feel like going into it, you felt like, oh, we're definitely the strongest team going into this?
Yes, I think so. We did fairly well against most teams, and even against some of the NA teams as well. I think we did really well. I was fairly confident that we were going to win, especially since I think our hardest opponent was SSG, if you look at scrims. And when we saw them losing to VP, we were thinking, okay, this should be in the bag. It looked
saves you a problem.
Yeah. It looked a bit shaky in the final, but I think we were fairly confident after SSG lost to VP that we were going to win.
I guess I can probably safely assume then that you see SSG very much as the biggest rivals, the scariest team in this tournament as well. Then,
yeah, because again, it's I think it's a very macro heavy meta. So, and they are a very good team with the macro. So, for me, they are the strongest opponent.
And then the way the circuit point of the qualification works out, it feels like you and SSG are probably going to qualify one way or another, unless you go out immediately in the lower bracket or something crazy. Yeah. Who do you think is the most likely team to join the two of you in Stockholm?
Oh, I haven't looked at the circuit point thing. I know us and SSG are really high up. Do you know who's third and fourth?
I forget the exact order, but I think it's roughly like the order they finish in.
Yeah,
would just I think like maybe Piece of Cake have to do slightly better than VP, especially to overtake them. But like it's
coming
pretty tight
now. Yeah, I think the safest bet to assume who's going to qualify is probably going to be VP, I think. But yeah, maybe Piece of Cake can go and win it all, but I think it's just better to assume that VP is going to join us.
And then I wanted to ask you in particular, because you've been playing Overwatch for a while, to say the least.
Yeah.
How do you see, because earlier in the year when you were on Twisted Minds, I felt like it was actually some of the best Overwatch I've seen you play. Where do you feel your current skill level is in the grand scheme of your career?
I think I'm getting old now, so I'm gonna be on a downward trend, I think. But I think I'm doing okay. I don't see myself as like a really great player or anything like that. I think I'm just good if you compare me to like other European supports like me. I wouldn't say I'm the best at all. I just think I'm doing like a solid job, and then it's just gonna slightly decline, I think, with time.
And then if we look at the tournament itself in terms of a bracket, are you happy with the side of a bracket you got? It's kind of obviously it sets you up for the classic upper bracket final against SSG.
Yeah, I mean, I think this bracket looks kind of similar to stage 3 as well, I believe. So I think again we're just banking on VP beating
another
SSG
favor. Yeah,
exactly. Because it's like it was like this as well in stage 1 when I was with TM. SSG was our hardest opponent, but they somehow lost to EXO, I think it was. So it was going into the grand final. It was like, okay, this should be in the bag. So hopefully I mean, I'm hoping for the same scenario, but we're confident in this one.
All right, great then. Thank you very much, Kellex. I appreciate your time, and obviously best of luck to you and Ence in the tournament.
Thank you very much.